Hi there, welcome to video number 3 in our beginning clarinet series. This one is going to be about forming the embouchure, which is the word for how you form your mouth around the mouthpiece, and tongue position. It's important where your tongue is inside your mouth when you're playing the clarinet. So the first thing, we're going to talk about forming the embouchure by itself. So to do that, I'm going to put my clarinet down. I have a stand over here to keep it safe. I can put the mouthpiece cap back on, because at first I'm just going to talk a little bit about the muscles of your face and what they should look like while you're playing. One of the easiest ways to learn how to do a clarinet embouchure and get comfortable with it is to get one of these itty-bitty teeny tiny straws. You can get them at coffee shops, sometimes maybe if you have coffee and donuts after your church service, or you can get them at a grocery store. They're itty-bitty teeny tiny straws. They're not drinking straws, they're small. And if you think about having to put air through a straw this small, what happens to your face when you do that? If you notice, what I had to do was I had to pull my mouth away. I had to pull the corners away just a little bit. I kind of flattened this down, and I had to press my upper lip on top to seal off the air so that the air was only going into the straw and not leaking out of the corners of my mouth. That's actually a very good beginning step to what you should do to play the clarinet. So when you play the clarinet, I'm going to take this off. The reed faces you. The reed should be touching your lower lip, and your lower lip should be rolled over your lower teeth. Your lower teeth do not touch the reed. Your upper teeth do rest on the top of the mouthpiece, but your lower teeth don't touch the reed. So you want to roll your lower lip over your lower teeth to about the point where your skin changes color on your face. Where it changes color from lip to face is about where your teeth should be on the other side of your lip. Some people have fuller lips, some people have thinner lips, but for most of us, that's a good rule of thumb, is right about there where it changes color. That's where you want your lower teeth to line up. If you pull too much lower lip over your teeth, you have to do that, and it's really hard to hold on to the embouchure. If you don't pull enough, if it's just you're kind of playing on the very edge of your lower lip, it's actually going to hurt. Your teeth are going to sort of bite into that little edge of your inner lip, and it doesn't feel good. Playing clarinet should at no point be painful. So you want to make sure that your lower lip is rolled over your lower teeth, and your entire lower lip should be nice and firm, even the parts that aren't directly touching the reed underneath. Because in order for the clarinet to work, the reed has to vibrate back and forth really fast while you're playing it. And if the edges of your lip are kind of holding the edges of the reed, it's not going to be able to move back and forth like it should. So you want to make sure that everything is nice and firm, so that you're almost thinking about pulling your lower lip away from the reed so that it can vibrate the way it needs to. Your upper lip should be helpful. Your upper lip should be pressing down a little bit on the top of the mouthpiece. You should actually use your embouchure, the muscles of your face, to hold the mouthpiece more than your jaw. You want to make sure that you're pressing down. You can actually sort of feel it in these muscles underneath your eyes. You're stretching things down from here, and you're pulling things down here, so your chin is as flat as it can be with that little ridge in it. Pulling these things down, pulling your lower lip nice and firm, and pressing down with your entire upper lip. You want to press everything down. So think about blowing through the air with a straw, keeping this nice and flat, that nice and firm, and using your upper lip to help you. Then you rest the reed on your lower lip and allow it to sort of roll your lip into your mouth. Keep your lower lip nice and firm, your chin nice and pointed down to the ground, and press down on the top of the mouthpiece with your upper lip, with your upper teeth resting on the mouthpiece. They should touch the mouthpiece. You do want to make contact. You just don't want to bite on it. So try that. And I'm not putting any fingers down. I'm just holding the clarinet. I'm playing an open G, so my thumb is under the thumb rest, but I'm not playing any other part of the clarinet. If you noticed, when I breathed through the corner of my mouth, not my nose. You're always going to get a lot more air, and you're going to be able to feel that expansion in your stomach, and breathe as low as possible if you breathe through your mouth and not your nose. So try it again. Keep this nice and firm, your chin pointed down, and your upper lip pressing on the mouthpiece. Now, I did also mention that we need to talk about tongue position, right? So we've got the embouchure down, your upper lip presses down, your lower lip's nice and firm, your chin's nice and flat, the corners are nice and firm, you're not letting any air leak out the sides. You want to make sure that your tongue is nice and high in your mouth. So before, when we were pretending to blow through the straw and I want you to change into. So So in order to do that, I didn't change anything that I was doing on the outside of my mouth. What I did was I moved my tongue up and forward in my mouth. Instead of just blowing air out like I was blowing out birthday candles and going, I moved my tongue up and forward to get that whistling sound, to go. So what I'm thinking when I play is I'm always saying E. If you say E, you'll notice you have to move your tongue up. You kind of have to squeeze it and move it forward, as opposed to saying ah or O, where your tongue drops low in your mouth. So to play clarinet, this does not apply to all instruments, but to play clarinet, you always have to make sure the tongue is high and the air moves quickly so that you're saying E the whole time. E, T when you play. So we're gonna make sure everything out here is nice and firm and sort of pulled down. And you're gonna say he inside your mouth while you're playing. So. Now, we talked in the posture video about clarinet angle. If you notice, I'm keeping it at about a 45-degree angle to my body. I'm not playing all the way out here. Listen to what happens to the sound when we play all the way out there. You notice the sound kind of drops and it gets really wide and really fuzzy. When the sound is really fuzzy and diffuse like that, it's not going to be as loud and it's not going to carry as far. So you want to keep the clarinet close to you and keep that sound nice and focused so that it actually projects further and you can hear it. Now, let's talk about how much mouthpiece you should have in your mouth. Because the mouthpiece is shaped like a wedge, even if you put just a little bit more mouthpiece in your mouth, it's going to feel like a lot because of the way it causes you to have to drop your jaw to accommodate more mouthpiece in your mouth. So because of that, a lot of beginning students tend to want to perch just on the very edge of their mouthpiece. Let's listen to the sound that happens when I play on the very, very edge of the mouthpiece. You hear how it's really small, it's really shaky, and it's actually hard for me to form a correct embouchure. I had to work really hard to keep air from leaking out of the corners of my mouth. But we don't want a small, tiny, hard to produce sound, mostly because it's small, tiny, and hard to produce. So you want to make sure that your embouchure hits the mouthpiece at about where the mouthpiece and the reed part company. If you turn your clarinet sideways and look at it this way, you can see that the reed is hopefully nice and flat, but that the mouthpiece actually curves away from it ever so slightly. And depending on what brand mouthpiece you have and what model, the curve is going to be a little bit of a different shape, but there is always a curve there. That allows the reed to vibrate back and forth while we're playing. So you want to put your embouchure right at about the point where the reed and the mouthpiece part company, where they just start to move apart. So if you're all the way up here on the tip of the mouthpiece, you're not allowing much of the reed to vibrate at all, which is why the sound is so small. So you want to make sure there's more mouthpiece in your mouth so that you can let as much of the reed vibrate as you can. Now there is such a thing as too far, and trust me, you will hear it when you get there because that's when the biggest, the honkiest squeaks happen. But experiment, try to put a little bit more of your mouthpiece in your mouth and play at the point where it still sounds good, but just before it starts to go out of control and wild. It's more mouthpiece than you think it is, I promise. So make sure that you have enough mouthpiece in your mouth so you get that reed nice and vibrating. It should actually, you should feel a little bit of a buzz in your mouth. Remember, because your upper teeth are touching the mouthpiece, that vibration is traveling up your jaw into your ears. So you're feeling and hearing some of that vibration inside your head, as well as the sound that's coming outside in the room going into the outside of your ears. So you're going to hear a weird combination of buzz and brightness when you play. That's actually a good thing. You want it to have a little bit of that vibration inside your head because outside in the room it's going to sound ringy and nice. So keep your chin flat, keep your lower lip nice and firm, press down with your upper lip. Make sure you're always saying E when you play. You'll be well on your way to being a happy and really great sounding clarinet player.